Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an awesome weekend so far. So, has anybody else but me noticed the temperature? It's really hot outside. It's really hot outside. So today we are going to beat the heat and make a video inside that is also a lot of fun, is productive and tasty. Yeah, we're gonna make herb salt. Okay, now this is a super duper easy recipe, something that you can actually customize to your flavor palettes, what you like, what you don't like, and or what you are growing or not growing. Let's get started. All right, so one of the things that I do have to go ahead and warn you about in this is that I am somebody who loves to cook, I love to bake, and I love to use herbs, produce, stuff grown right here off of our urban homestead. So making something like this for me is just pure joy. Now, you can do this any way that you really want to. So if you want to make an herb salt, for instance, that is very flavor specific, if you want it to be very Italian, you can do an Italian inspired one. If you want an herb de Provence, you can do an herb de Provence styled one. But what I'm going to be doing today is what I am going to be calling the homestead salt, and that is literally going to be just a compilation of every single herb that I have growing out in our herb garden here on the homestead. So all you need is herbs and salt. Now, it doesn't really matter, well, it does slightly matter, but let me put it to you this way. You don't necessarily want to use rock salt for this, but if you have a fine grain or if you have a coarse grain, that's not going to make a difference in this recipe one way or another, because you are still going to be putting it in the food processor / blender, whatever you have available to you. So the salt will end up being finer one way or the other. And all I'm going to do, I literally just dumped this salt in here, and use a salt of your preference. I have here a pink Himalayan fine grain sea salt. You could use Celtic sea salt. I actually used Celtic sea salt last year. So literally whatever you have available to you. If you have something that you can get that's more regional to you, then of course by all means go on ahead and go with that route. I don't really have that option where we are located. I wish we did, but we don't. So it's basically using whatever I can find that is natural and organic here locally. All right, then the next thing that you do is you just take your herbs and start deconstructing your herbs straight into your food processor. So like with the basil, I'm just going to start taking all of the leaves off and adding this in here. Now, I do not have exact measurements for you on this, and the reason is some people like lighter herb flavor than others. I am one of those people. I love a lot of herb flavor in my food, so I am not at all shy about the amounts of things that I put in. So I'm probably going to be putting in close to 2 cups of packed basil, close to half a cup of or more of rosemary. There's going to be at least half a cup of sage in here, and these are all fresh herbs. Now, when you're doing this, the good news is that the salt is going to preserve your herbs, so you don't necessarily have to have them dry. Yay! So If you are somebody who, for instance, doesn't really keep a lot of dried herb product, you don't play with a lot of herbs like I do, you just don't have a back stock in there, and you're trying to figure out what to do with those herbs that you grew on your balcony, and you've got a lot of them coming in and more and more and more of it, because when it comes to herbs, the more you cut, the more you have. It's just the way the herbs work, guys. So the more you cut them and use them in the kitchen, the more they're going to keep coming in. So then what do you do with it? This is a great preservation method if you do not want to keep single herb product in your pantry. Basically is what I'm trying to say. All right. Now I do take off stems. Like, you don't want hard stems in here. It's not going to help with the flavor in this instance. In fact, it could add a touch of bitterness that isn't a good kind of bitterness that you want in your herb salt. So I just go on ahead and I get rid of all of my little stems and things. All right, let me go on ahead and speed this process along for you guys. Okay, so if you've been paying attention, the color of this has started to change. And what I am doing in between adding the herbs is kind of starting to process them down. But you will be able to see in here, I'll try and do this carefully, that I do not have them completely broken down in here. I have put a whole bag of salt in here. So in doing that, it's pretty full. And herbs, well, they're kind of in the very fluffy category. So this is just an easy way for, number one, me to start breaking it down, and number two, to keep the herbs from falling out, because there's only so much bowl space. Also, it goes without saying that I try to weed out any of the leaves and herbs that look like they've been chewed on a whole lot or look really dried out. I'm not 100% perfect at it. If you get a little bit of like a dry tip in there or anything, it's fine. It's not the end of the world. Nobody's going to be hurt or die from it. So just go through it and do this the best that you can. This is a really good project to do if you have kids. It's simple, it's easy, it gets them involved in the garden, plus it makes really good gifts. So if you're looking for a gift giving idea that your child can do, this might be something to take into consideration. Alright, so I blended this together on high in my food processor for almost 2 minutes now. And I'm just gonna kind of get in here. Now see, there's still some leaves and such that are in here, so I'm just gonna come in and kind of scrape down the sides like you would if you were making chocolate chip cookies or something. Okay, we're officially done with the blending part of this project. Now, there's 3 things that come to mind that you can do. Number 1, you can spread this out on a flexi sheet if you have a dehydrator and put it in your dehydrator. You can also simply spread it out on a baking sheet, cover it with cheesecloth, paper towels. You don't want anything covering it that's real thick like terry cloth, just because it'll take it a lot longer to dry out. You just cover that baking sheet and set it on your counter in an out of the way place and check it every 2 to 3 days. The other thing that you can do is, if you do not have a dehydrator and you do not want to leave it on the counter and or don't have space to leave it on your counter for 2 weeks, I totally get, total respects, you can stick it in your oven at the lowest setting. I think our lowest setting is like 175 degrees on our oven, but every oven is different, so check your manufacturer's instructions on that. You just spread it out thinly on a baking sheet, pop it in the oven. I'd say give it about 15 minutes and check it every 15 minutes. You just want it dry. You don't want it so dry that it's turning brown. You just want the salt to be a normal dryness, like what you would use when you are salting at a table or salting your meat or any of your vegetables when you're going to cook them. Alright, so I do have a dehydrator that Santa brought me last year for Christmas, and I've got these beautiful silicone mats that my mom found for us, thankfully, because that's perfect for what we are doing today. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 layers, and this was how many ounces is this? 2.2 pounds. So a little over 30, let's see, that'd be 34-ish ounces roughly, not counting the herbs that are in it. So I am just going to go on ahead and stack those up, plug this guy in, and I am going to dry mine on the herb and spice setting in my dehydrator. That's going to work best for this recipe for my dehydrator. There are other dehydrators obviously that operate differently, so definitely go on ahead and check your instructions for the herb and spice settings on your unit if you are using a dehydrator. And that is it. After this has dried out, what I'll do is I'll just go on ahead and put it in a jar, have it sitting right next to the stove so that I can do some easy cooking meals, because while I do love to cook and bake this time of the year with the harvest starting to come in, honestly, I'm cooking a lot of the harvest and doing preserving of the harvest, so I want something really easy that I can just reach over and grab and season just about any kind of meat that I have and know it's going to taste delicious. So, guys, without any further ado, I'm going to go on ahead and bid you adieu for this video. I will go on ahead and shoot a end shot of what it looks like once it's fully dried and in the jar, because honestly, it's kind of beautiful. It really is. So, as always, keep it simple, natural, and essential. And guys, I will see you on the next one.